Wonderful.
After the success of Spider-Man from 2000, it's no surprise that a sequel was made the very next year. Centered on a classic Spider-Man villain that didn't make the cut in the last game, I give you Spider-Man 2, which is not to be confused with Spider-Man 2, or Spider-Man 2. Man, they gotta get better at naming these games. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro is a game that has been largely overlooked by fans over the years. I'm guilty of this myself, as this is one of the few Spider-Man games that I've yet to sit down and play from start to finish, if you can believe it. So this will be a learning experience for me too. Before we get into it, if you haven't already seen my video covering the first game, you can click the link in the description to do so. I highly recommend it, as I'm not going to go in depth with the basic gameplay features here, since they're very similar to that game. With that being said, let's dive into Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro for PlayStation 1. After doing such a good job with their first game, you'd expect Neversoft to be back with yet another adventure for the web-slinger, but sadly that isn't the case this time around. Instead, developer Vicarious Visions was given the task of making this game, a company that was mostly known for porting existing games or developing handheld titles. Oh. As I said before, this game is a direct sequel to Spider-Man from 2000, only where that game released on a handful of systems, strangely, Enter Electro is a PlayStation exclusive title, which is probably one of the reasons it's not as well known as the first game. I could barely find any details on this game's development compared to the first one. However, this game uses the first one as a base, so most of their efforts probably went into level design and mechanics, rather than building an experience from the ground up like Neversoft did. This game was originally meant to release in September of 2001, but the game's climax originally took place atop the World Trade Center, so as you can imagine, it had to be delayed to October of that year. More on that later. This game sees the return of Rino Romano as Spider-Man, and I think he does an even better job here than in the first game. His delivery just feels that much more impactful.
Those walls are just as hard as I thought.
Aside from that, the rest of the voice cast do a decent job. There just aren't as many standout performances as there were in the first game. Music is composed by Todd Maston, and it's just about as good as it was the first time around. I particularly love this title screen music, which brings us right into the next part of the video. The game starts with a brief recap of the first game.
Previously on Spider-Man,
albeit with noticeably better graphics. This is because this game's cutscenes use the models found in the PC version of the first game. We open with a cutscene of Electro breaking into a facility called Biotech and stealing a device, which will amplify his powers. This game's cutscenes have such a dark and creepy atmosphere, which is funny since it focuses on one of Spider-Man's silliest looking villains. Some background if you aren't already familiar with Electro. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man issue 9, Max Dillon was an ordinary electrician working on power lines when suddenly, lightning struck his body, transforming him into a living power generator. What's interesting about the original incarnation of Electro when compared to later adaptations is that he wears a metal harness over his body to control his electric blasts, instead of just firing them straight out of his fingers. Electro is definitely not as big of a threat as someone like Carnage or Doc Ock, but this game does make an effort to power him up before we finally confront him. Every level of the game opens with the Daily Bugle newspaper, usually trashing Spider-Man, and if you end up failing a level, you'll be greeted with even harsher headlines. That's some great attention to detail. Despite not playing this game very much growing up, this loading screen of Spider-Man running in place is burned into my brain. So classic.
Welcome, true believers. Stan Lee here to bring you yet another scintillating tale of superhero daring-do.
The opening level takes place in New York at sunset, and it looks great. Beast from the X-Men is here too, playing Black Cat's role. Maybe I should rephrase that. He gives you hints if you weren't already familiar with the game's controls. The other X-Men appear in the game's training mode. I wonder if this was some kind of cross-promotion with X-Men Mutant Academy 2, since Spider-Man is playable there. In fact, these games would have released on the same day had this one never been delayed. As I mentioned before, the gameplay is nearly identical to the last game, with the addition of being able to web enemies from midair and this web targeting system for when you need to yank something like an air vent or fire hydrant. Cool idea, but the execution really isn't great, since the game rarely tells you that's what you need to do. Get used to that, because that just about sums up this entire game. Health and web power-ups are back, and so is the Spidey armor pickup, but it must be harder to find this time around, because I only found it once during my playthrough. New additions include freeze web and electric webbing. These are very useful later on in the game. The streets aren't flooded with toxic gas this time, so theoretically we should be able to go down there and...
Wonderful.
Still can't do that. And hey, look at that, they finally remembered the webs on Spider-Man's suit. They look a little funky, and I think they still forgot to put them on his belt, but he looks a little less like a lobster now at least. This level is very similar to the opening mission from the first game. And look, the Baxter building is here too, in a completely different part of the city for some reason.
I wonder if they rent or own.
That's something you'll notice throughout this game. There's a lot more dialogue describing what's going on during gameplay. That's kind of ahead of its time. After finishing the tutorial, Spider-Man sits on a rooftop reading a newspaper before being interrupted by the sounds of a nearby explosion.
Time to do that hero thing, Spidey.
A hooded figure runs out of biotech and drives off, but not before getting a spider tracer stuck to him. This leads into the first mission that takes place in the streets of New York. It's so cool to finally get to see down here, even if you can't dynamically go from rooftops to ground level. This level consists of patrolling around New York and throwing trash cans at people. I think I forgot to mention that you can throw stuff in my video about the first game. So, yeah, you can throw stuff. At one point, criminals blow up a coffee shop, to which Spider-Man remarks,
Lucky no one was inside.
I love when stories meant for kids try to act like people didn't just die horribly.
Look, I can see their parachutes. They're okay.
To put out the fires, we must target a fire hydrant and web pull it. Only I was playing this part of the game on mute, so I had no clue what to do aside from running in circles like an idiot. I did, however, find this hidden basketball that you can play with in this alley. Next, Spider-Man climbs back up to the rooftops to follow the signal from a spider tracer. I really like the fact that the criminals are wearing camouflage on top of completely gray skyscrapers. You are not blending in at all. This level has some pretty cool scenery, like the part where you run across the top of this bridge. The thing that frustrated me here is that multiple thugs are stationed on rooftops throughout the city using giant turrets to shoot you. So naturally, I just ran past them to go straight to the end. Only nothing happened. So I had to backtrack all the way to the start and destroy every turret before it would let me progress. I wish the game had just told me I had to destroy every turret instead of making me waste my time. Spider-Man arrives at the warehouse only to discover the place crawling with thugs. One by one I defeated them, and Spider-Man is told by one of the thugs that something is happening at a nearby airfield. Suddenly, the Shocker appears and a boss fight begins. In the comics, the Shocker comes from Amazing Spider-Man issue 46. Herman Schultz was a common thief who was arrested after being caught breaking into a safe. Thanks to his expertise with tools, he was put into the prison workshop. There, he developed gauntlets that shoot shockwaves, hence the name Shocker. Shocker and Electro are commonly confused with one another, so a good way to tell between the two is to remember that Electro has superpowers and Shocker does not. He just shoots high-powered vibrations. Really not as cool when you put it like that, but I digress. The warehouse is set ablaze and is going to blow any minute, so there's a time limit to fight Shocker. Definitely not the easiest first boss to fight. Comparing this game's boss battles to the ones in the first game, it's so unclear what to do this time around. In the first game, the solution was usually pretty straightforward. I tried punching Shocker, but it barely did anything. I tried webbing him up, and he broke out immediately. After trying and failing for 10 minutes, I learned that you're supposed to drop these huge crates on top of him. Only it's extremely hard to get it to line up. Eventually I was able to beat him, but this boss was rough. It's sad, because the boss battles were my favorite part of the first game. The warehouse explodes and Spider-Man hands Shocker over to the police, before making a reference to another character who was voiced by Reno Romano in the early 2000s.
I don't need pointy ears and a cape to figure out that this is probably another heist.
The next level sees Spider-Man swing through the city before being shot out of the sky by rockets. This is another street level mission, where weird mercenaries who look like ninjas have planted a bomb that takes 4 color-coded keys to disarm. The cutscene of them activating it is so weird looking. What do you mean seconds later? I could have just walked up to it myself. After this, you have to search the city hoping to find the 4 specific mercenaries holding each key before the time limit expires. This one is creative, but it kind of feels like a repeat of the bomb in the bank from the first game. As you find each key, you can head back over to the bomb and insert it, which grants more time before the level ends. When you finally manage to track down each key, the bomb is disarmed. A fun fact about this mission: if you manage to hold off on inserting the keys until you have all 4, the Negative Zone costume is unlocked. We'll go back to look at all the costumes after the story is complete. Arriving at Hangar 18, Spider-Man discovers that thugs are planning to ambush the police with machine guns, which leads right into a stealth sequence. Trying to move around the level without being spotted is nearly impossible. I tried as hard as I could, and without fail they would spot me from across the map. At this point I was running low on web fluid, so it wasn't easy to take out every turret. You may have noticed by now, but this game is hard. It seems like everything from the first game has been made pointlessly complicated this time around. A lot of the time you'll have no idea what to do or where to go. That isn't to bash on this game, I just wanted to make sense how this one differs from the first game, despite looking visually similar. Anyway, Spider-Man successfully deactivates all the turrets, and heads inside the hangar, to what is, in my opinion, the worst mission in this entire game.
Quick, Spider-Lad. You stop the plane, and I'll get the bad guys. Oh, wait. I don't have a sidekick.
Spider-Man must now stop an out-of-control plane from crashing into explosive barrels, and the only hint you get is that he must use his webbing. So I thought, okay, I'll just web up the propellers to slow it down. Only when you web a certain propeller, the plane starts turning, and before I could stop it, the plane crashed into the wall and I had to start all over. Next, I tried picking up and throwing the barrels out of the way, but that took too long and the plane crashed anyway. Finally, after numerous attempts, I learned that the barrels can be destroyed with impact webbing, so I run around shooting all of them like a madman until I'm met with this giant door. No big deal. I'll just flip the switch and let the plane exit the hangar. You gotta be kidding me. Turns out you have to do all of those things in that order and still have time to spare to web up the propellers without letting it crash into the wall. Golly, I apologize for that rant, and I'm sure some of you guys will say you figured it out on the first try, but that was insane. Not even so much as a hint pop up saying webbing can be used to destroy the barrels from midair or anything. I'm sure now that I know what to do it wouldn't be so bad, but there are a lot of moments like that in this game that hurt the experience for me. The developers were trying something new and I appreciate that, but I don't think I should have to fail the level 20 times in a row before I finally figure out what to do. Spider-Man saves the pilot and uses a spider tracer to track a helicopter that escaped in the confusion. This next level is extremely simple after that last one. Tracking the helicopter, we platform across the city with this meter at the bottom of the screen indicating how close we are. What's strange is that the Spidey compass is still here, so it's not exactly difficult to pinpoint where we're supposed to go. Getting to the train yard, which looks a lot more like a prison, we enter another stealth sequence. Guards are patrolling the area, and after they're all taken out, we have to press various buttons around the map to make the door switch activate. This is reminiscent of the part in the first game where Venom locks 4 steel doors that must be opened in a specific order, which was one of my favorite puzzles there. The next level is more of the same, just beating up enemies and flipping switches to open doors and progress. I will say, these control rooms look very similar to the underground base seen at the end of the first game. One of the trains gets away and Spider-Man follows, leading into an encounter with one of my favorite classic Spider-Man villains. Approaching the train, Spider-Man is attacked by the Sandman. This isn't just a boss fight, but more of a chase mission where we have to juggle battling Sandman with trying to reach the train. Which isn't easy since Sandman keeps building giant walls of sand that have to be destroyed by throwing objects at them. It's anxiety-inducing trying to throw objects before being hit by him, but I thought it was so cool that Sandman showed up, I really didn't mind. It's surprising he wasn't in the first game considering he's one of Spider-Man's oldest villains. For some background, Sandman first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue 4. William Baker, also known as Flint Marko, was a criminal who hid inside an atomic testing site facility to escape the police. Residing on the beach, a nuclear blast caused the molecules in his body to merge with the sand below, transforming him into the Sandman. Finally catching up with the train, Spider-Man encounters the Beetle, who quickly blasts him and flies away, leaving Spider-Man with an invitation to a Daily Bugle ball.
Looks like Spiderella's going to the ball.
Throughout the game, multiple villains are seen carrying strange briefcases. These cases contain the parts Electro needs to assemble a device that would give him limitless power. Now all Electro needs is the help of Dr. Watts back at Biotech to finish it. Get it? Dr. Watts? This cutscene uses a hilariously bad-looking model of Sandman.
Yeah, plans and speeches are all well and good, but I think you're forgetting about one thing. Spider-Man.
And it is really weird to see this sound effect used unironically.
It's policy.
Hammerhead shows up and explains that his plan is to ambush the science ball and kidnap Dr. Watts in the process. Spider-Man arrives only to find that the building is now crawling with Hammerhead's thugs. You'll also likely notice that this level is just a repurposed bank interior from the first game. After taking out some thugs, a civilian is trapped in one of the elevators, requiring us to yank one of the air vents down. I won't lie, I totally forgot this was a feature until now, so it took me a second to realize that was what I needed to do. The elevator is unstable, so we have to use webs to secure it. Only problem is, this game is really bad about giving you web cartridges, so I didn't have enough, and this happened.
Wonderful.
After respawning, I had my webs back and was able to free the hostage. The rest of the level is basically just the bank heist from the first game, crawling along the ceiling and taking out thugs. I did really love this reference to one of my favorite underused Spider-Man villains partway through the level.
Hey, who dresses you guys anyway? Hobgoblin?
That's one thing these games do best. Spider-Man has already met most of his villains before they show up in-game, whereas the newer Spider-Man games always have him meeting villains for the first time. That just makes me feel like he hasn't accomplished very much in the years that he's been a superhero. The next level starts with a really strange cutscene.
Just 6 of you against 1 woman?
What do you mean 6? There are 3 guys there. Maybe the Beetle and a few other villains were originally meant to be here or something. Hammerhead comes from issue 113 of Amazing Spider-Man. He's a gangster with a metal plate in his head who can run straight through walls like the Rhino. His origin is one of the weirder ones I've seen from a comic character. Get this. An unnamed man was found in an alleyway, shot and left for dead. Above him was an old gangster movie poster. A brain surgeon named Jonas Harrow discovered the man and repaired his broken body, adding metal plates in the place of shattered bones. With no prior memory of his life, the man modeled himself after the gangster movie poster he saw, becoming Hammerhead. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they've retconned that origin by now in comics, but as far as his first appearance is concerned, that's what happened. Hammerhead's inclusion here is neat, but this boss fight is painful. This is another example of the game making no effort to tell you what to do. At first, I thought it was another Rhino situation where you wait until he charges and leap out of the way at the last second, which does happen, but it's nearly impossible to get it to work. So I tried punching him, and that did barely any damage. On top of that, I was constantly being shot at by him. After trying and failing multiple times, I learned that you're meant to target his gun and yank it out of his hand, and only then, for some reason, will he take a reasonable amount of damage. It still isn't easy by any means, but eventually I was able to defeat him. Upon beating Hammerhead, Spider-Man goes to check on Dr. Watts, only to find that she vanished. Spider-Man calls Dr. Connors, who works at Biotech, to see what's going on, and discovers that he is transformed into the Lizard once again. Arriving at Biotech, we have to make our way through a huge facility while being shot by flying drones. At the start of the level, a boiler begins melting down, which led me to believe that I had to race to the control room to shut it off. But whenever I tried...
Control room.
Okay, I think you get the idea. I won't bore you with my failing every mission over and over anymore, but this game is really confusing sometimes. The next room has a giant generator with vents above it that can be accessed after shutting off the laser grid and flipping a switch in the control room. Once inside the vents, we make our way to another control room and find out that Dr. Connors is in the Special Projects lab. The next mission takes Spidey through various areas blocked by force fields. To disable these, we must complete a series of increasingly tedious and complex objectives, like destroying drone generators, making laser guns shoot each other, which rarely seems to work, and increasing the temperature of a room so robots can't detect us. While these last few missions have been confusing to say the least, I want to take the opportunity to highlight how cool the mechanical aesthetic in this game is. I like how visually distinct it is from the first game despite having so many assets shared between them. It also seems to be night a lot more in this one, making it even more visually distinct. Getting back to the story, Spider-Man arrives at the lab and encounters the Lizard, who is way scarier this time around.
Wow, maybe this wasn't the Lizard. This amount of damage would do the Hulk proud. Come on, Doc, give me a sign here. Let me know you're okay. Relax!
What happened to his chipper attitude from the first game?
Listen, dude.
Jokes aside, it's cool to finally get to fight him, and I like that he has his purple pants from the comics. Speaking of which, Lizard comes from the Amazing Spider-Man issue 6. In this issue, Peter Parker is sent to get photos of Spider-Man and the mysterious Lizard who suddenly appeared in Florida. Once there, Spider-Man seeks the help of reptile expert Dr. Kurt Connors, only to discover that Connors is the Lizard, accidentally doing this to himself after using reptile DNA to regrow his arm that was lost during the war. As I'm sure many of you have noticed, this is quite different from how most adaptations portray the Lizard, often making him a scientist who works somewhere in New York instead of down in Florida. Regardless, that's what you need to know about Lizard. Now, let's get into the boss battle. At the start of the fight, we need to access this computer to formulate the antidote for Dr. Connors. These last few missions had a lot of weird minigames that look just like this for some reason. The Lizard is invulnerable unless he is shot with the antidote that serves as a web power-up. This is one of those bosses that you don't want getting too close to you. He is really scary in this game. And I can't get it out of my head that his screeches sound eerily similar to Mothra from Godzilla. Am I the only one who hears that? With Lizard beaten, he reverts back into Dr. Connors, who explains that Electro broke in and attacked him, probably explaining why he became the Lizard before, and that if Electro is able to complete his device, then he'll be able to amplify his electricity powers and become like a god. Spider-Man heads to Dr. Watts' lab, and on the way faces numerous drones and laser cannons. I really don't know why he has to do this. The only explanation given is that if we don't shut all of these down, he will Never get to Dr. Watt's lab. This reminds me of the levels in the underwater base from the end of the first game. Everyone and everything is out to get you in this level. Spider-Man enters Dr. Watt's lab, only to find it destroyed just like Connor's was. Using the computer, he's able to learn that Electro's device needs a special jewel in order to work. Before there's time to ask any questions, Sandman shows up, and a boss battle ensues. Before we get into it, I just want to say that this is by far the best boss battle in this game. This also happens to be the closest to a boss fight from the first game, in that you can pretty easily figure out what you're supposed to do instead of these weird convoluted solutions most bosses have. Fighting Sandman in the middle of a construction site is the most classic Spider-Man thing ever. To stun Sandman, we must activate a water pump to increase the pressure and then turn the valve when Sandman is in range. Of course they felt the need to make that a two-step process instead of just letting us turn the water on like normal, but it's not too big of a deal. There's a building under construction that we can climb to get a comic collectible, but I didn't have much luck making it to the top before Sandman destroyed it. Frustrating, sure, but I love the attention to detail that he can even do that. With Sandman finally defeated, Spider-Man finds a nearby newspaper that says something. I'm being completely honest when I say I can barely read this, it's so pixelated. Luckily in the next scene we get a closer view, and this serves as Electro's way of finding out where the jewel is kept. He does just that and heads for the museum. Arriving at the museum, Electro uses a power I have never seen before and brings suits of samurai armor to life to fight Spider-Man. This is the final stretch of the game, and with that comes a lot of creative ideas. This level requires us to destroy each samurai and then throw the remaining armor pieces into a generator that's being used to electrocute the entrance to the next exhibit. I think he could have just used the door if he wanted to keep me out. This next level is one of my least favorites. Spider-Man has to crawl along the wall all the way to the top, which is about the height of the Empire State Building, give or take. That's not all. There are also electrified walls, exploding screens, and lightning strikes to worry about. Despite this exhibit being based on the Earth's history, the only thing I learned during this level is that I hate lightning. The next area sees our first proper battle against Electro. It's really cool visually, taking place in a model of the solar system. There are a few annoying attacks he does, like spinning around shooting lightning, but strangely, the main move he does against you, this electricity dome, does no damage at all. So I had a very easy time with this. Electro grabs Dr. Watts and threatens to fry her if Spider-Man doesn't hand over the jewel. With no choice, Spider-Man tosses it over and Electro transforms into a pure energy version of himself, known as Hyper Electro. I'm not kidding, check the character viewer. He then flies to the top of two suspiciously unnamed towers so he can absorb as much electricity as possible. He then blasts Spider-Man and ends up destroying part of his suit in the process. The first ever instance of suit damage in a Spider-Man game. The final battle is here, and it's not easy. There are multiple things to do before Electro can be damaged, like destroying generators on the central antenna, and then disabling capacitors on the other tower. After all that's done, you can now damage Electro, but only if you stand in the most specific spot and get him to do this lightning attack that causes him to get stunned. As far as I know, that's the only way to do it. Even then, I nearly died multiple times. He plants electric mines everywhere, and they're so hard to see, with so many electricity effects already flying all over the screen. After all of that, Electro is defeated once and for all. We don't get to see the immediate aftermath of his defeat, instead cutting to a gag of Spider-Man reading a Daily Bugle that claims the mighty Thor was the one to save the city from Electro instead of Spider-Man. Spider-Man is obviously not happy about this, and crumbles it up before swinging into the sunset. Our last ever look at this version of Spider-Man. Elsewhere, we see Hammerhead and Shocker playing poker in prison, while Electro sits in the background whining about his defeat.
If it weren't for Spider-Man, I'd be a god now! Would you shut up?
I had the biggest smile on my face when this happened in the final moments.
You know any other games? All I know is poker.
Nah, but maybe they know a few.
Hey! You guys know how to play Go Fish?
That's gold right there. After sitting through a bizarre credits sequence to say the least, it's time to go back to the main menu and check out this game's bonus content, starting with the unlockable costumes. And there are quite a few. Alternate costumes include Spider-Phoenix, Prodigy, Dusk, the Insulated Suit, Alex Ross Suit, Alex Ross in White, Venom 2 from Earth X, Negative Zone, Symbiote, 2099, Captain Universe, Unlimited, Bagman, Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly, Quick Change, Peter Parker, and finally, Battle Damage Spidey. I was pleasantly surprised to see just how many there were here. I also discovered a strange Easter egg, where if you held down all the shoulder buttons on the controller, Spider-Man sort of disappears and leaves behind a ghostly white outline. From what I can tell, you can't actually play as this, so I wouldn't count it as a hidden costume, but I still felt like it was worth mentioning. Let me know if you know why this is here. While there are a lot of suits, only 2 of them were unlocked by the end of my playthrough. Those being Earth X Venom 2 and Battle Damage Spidey. I've heard more suits than that are supposed to be unlocked by beating it on normal, but who knows. Maybe that's my punishment for dying 100 times in every level. With such a great lineup of alternate suits, this leads us to my favorite bonus feature of the game: create a Spidey. Most of the costumes in this game grant you special abilities, like infinite health or infinite webbing, things like that. This feature takes it to the next level by giving us the ability to mix and match these powers between the various suits. So if you want to play the game as Peter Parker with infinite health and stronger punches, you can. Likewise, if you want to play as Symbiote Spider-Man with limited web cartridges, you can do that too. Although I don't know why you would. The point is, just having the choice to customize Spider-Man any way you like is really sweet. Just like the first game, there are a variety of comic book covers to collect and view, many of them being first appearances of characters in this game, or issues related to certain costumes. We can also view cutscenes, storyboards, Daily Bugle headlines, everything you'd expect to be in the extras menu. However, one thing that took me by surprise was the Parker Portfolio section, which contains art of the game's various boss battles done by Marvel comic book artists of the time. Different pieces of art are unlocked by playing through the game on various difficulties. I played on normal and unlocked this beautiful art done by Mark Bagley, but I also found these pieces done by John Romita Sr., who drew many of the most important Spider-Man comics ever created. Tutorial missions are included that feature Charles Xavier and Rogue from the X-Men, guiding Spider-Man through his various abilities. This is why Beast made an appearance at the start of the game's story mode. On top of this, there are various challenges to play that take place in some sort of weird Matrix-looking environment. I'm not sure if it was an issue with my copy, but every time I tried to play one of these while using an alternate suit, I would revert back to normal Spider-Man, so be aware of that. Cheat codes make their grand return in this game, with What If mode even being featured. In the case of What If mode, this version isn't as creative as it was in the first game. I think a more fitting name would have been Banana mode. Normally this would be where we start to close things off, but before we do that, we need to talk about the censorship this game faced following the unfortunate attacks on September 11th, 2001. Many of you who played this game may notice strange details here and there, like how Spider-Man says, "Wonderful," if you fall to your demise, or how Thor is mentioned in the game's last cutscene, but is nowhere to be seen aside from that. All of those and more are the result of the aforementioned censorship, following the game being delayed until October. Somehow, copies of the original version of this game still exist, and by viewing gameplay of them, we learn just how far that censorship goes. In the final game, level names were changed, cutscenes were cut to pieces to remove lines of dialogue, and a scene where a plane explodes, along with the entire final mission being remodeled since the final battle originally took place on top of the World Trade Center. Perhaps the most interesting cut feature of all is this lost Thor cutscene. Rumor has it that there was originally going to be a scene where Spider-Man encounters Thor after the final battle. You may be thinking it's probably still in the original version of the game, but that's not the case. So it must have been cut even before that for some unknown reason. Footage of this cutscene is said to have been featured on Activision's official website around the time of the game's release. Only problem is that that was 24 years ago, and the website is long gone by now, making this lost media. As of today, all we have that remains of this scene is this image. Hopefully sometime in the near future, more will be uncovered about this mysterious file. Enter Electro would see its release on October 18th, 2001. Seeing as this is a PS1 exclusive title, there aren't nearly as many versions of this game as the predecessor had. That said, there are some cover arts I'd like to compare. Most of these are identical to the US version, except for this sleek red version from Japan. Following its release, Spider-Man Enter Electro would get mixed reviews, but reception was generally lower than it was with the first game, which is to be expected since this is essentially the first game but not as good. Despite my saying that, this game is still a good time. By no means is this a bad game just because it didn't live up to the impossible standard set by the first one. I still recommend Enter Electro for any Spider-Man fan out there. Just play the game on easy mode or turn on invincibility. Thanks for watching. This has been a cool experience getting to play through an older Spider-Man game I had barely touched until now. If you'd like to see more from me, I have 2 other YouTube channels. One used for showcasing mods and other content in games, and the other used for Let's Play style videos. Links to both channels along with my social media pages will be in the video description. As for my next project, I'm hoping to get that one out around Halloween, but that's all I'm going to say about that. Be sure to let me know what your guys' personal experiences with this game were in the comments below. And be sure to thank my personal assistant for this video, Honeybun, who laid next to me during the making of this video. Thanks for watching. Until next time, see you then.